88 years ago, a book was written, not in the halls of Ivy League schools or corporate boardrooms, but from the careful study of the world's most successful people at the time. That book, though bound in simple paper and ink, would go on to unlock more doors to wealth than perhaps any university in history, and it didn't cost thousands of dollars. It didn't require years of study. It required only a willing mind, an open heart, and the burning desire to do something great with your life. You see, we live in a world that teaches us early on to follow a standard path. Study hard, go to college, earn your degree, and maybe, just maybe, you'll find success. And for many this works just fine. Institutions like Harvard have shaped the minds of leaders, entrepreneurs, and scholars. But let me tell you something that may surprise you. That little book from 1937, quietly sitting on the shelves of homes across the world, has created more millionaires than all those ivy-covered walls combined. Why? Because the truths within it do not rely on external systems or academic titles. They rely solely on the power of the human spirit. They tap into something far greater than memorization or exams. They tap into your desire, your definite major purpose. And I'll let you in on a secreting: when a person truly knows what they want, and they refuse to quit until they get it, the universe itself begins to move in harmony with their aim. Now, many people will ask, how can a book change someone's life more than a university? It's a fair question. After all, schools teach us structure. They give us credentials, but there's one thing a traditional education often fails to teach: the power of thought. Not just idle thought or daydreaming, but thought that is directed, disciplined, and energized with purpose. That is where true wealth begins. In 1937, the world was still reeling from a Great Depression. People had lost hope. Banks had collapsed. Families struggled to make ends meet. It was a time when faith in opportunity was fading. Yet in the middle of that uncertainty, this book emerged, not as a list of financial strategies, but as a blueprint of the mind. It didn't offer guarantees. It offered responsibility. It told each reader, in no uncertain terms, you have the power to change your life, but you must first change your thinking. And let me make this perfectly clear: this book does not promise riches to the lazy, to the unfocused, or to those who wish without action. It makes no room for excuse makers. It speaks to the ones who are willing to harness their desire like a fire, to write down what they want, and refuse to settle for anything less. It was written for the man who sits in a one-room apartment with nothing in his pockets but still dreams like a king, for the woman who works 2 jobs but goes to bed envisioning a business of her own. It was made for the hungry, the determined, the ones ready to demand something greater from life. That's why this book has changed more lives than any diploma ever could. It doesn't just feed information. It teaches transformation. It doesn't hand you a title. It shows you how to become the kind of person who commands success. And above all, it doesn't ask the world to give you anything. It teaches you how to earn it, then reluctant agreement, through the sheer force of belief and action. I've met people with multiple degrees who couldn't find direction, and I've met high school dropouts who used the principles in this book to become self-made millionaires. What's the difference? It's not intelligence, it's not luck, it's clarity, it's conviction. It's the realization that success is not something you find in a building or a syllabus. It's something you build inside yourself. And once it's built there, it begins to show up everywhere else in your life. Even today, decades later, letters still come from people around the world, people of all ages, from all backgrounds, telling their story of how reading this book at just the right time changed the course of everything. They say it woke them up. It gave them a sense of direction they never got in school. It helped them think bigger, aim higher, and work smarter, not because it handed them answers, but because it asked them the right questions. What do you truly want? Why do you want it? What are you willing to give in return? These are not academic questions. These are life-altering questions. And when you answer them honestly, when you write them down and revisit them daily, something inside you begins to shift. You begin to walk differently, talk differently, decide differently, and in time, live differently. So no, this book didn't come with a degree or a certificate, but it came with something far more powerful: a system for unlocking the richest parts of your mind. A system that has created wealth, peace of mind, purpose, and freedom for those who dare to truly apply it. And unlike a college education, it remains accessible to anyone with a willing mind. Now, I ask you, what would you rather invest in? Want agreement, a piece of paper with your name on it, or a mindset that could change your name in history? Let me tell you something that most people never truly understand: success does not begin in the bank account, or the job title, or the neighborhood where you live. It begins in the mind, with one powerful thing: a definite purpose. You see, drifting through life without direction is the silent destroyer of dreams. Most people are busy but not purposeful. They are working, moving, chasing, but they're not aiming. And that's the difference between the successful and the unsuccessful. The ones who achieve great things are not necessarily more talented or more fortunate. They are more definite. They know what they want, and they pursue it with unwavering focus. When a person fixes their mind on a clear, specific goal, something incredible begins to happen. Energy gathers. The mind begins to direct thoughts, ideas, and actions toward that purpose. It's as if life starts opening doors that were previously invisible. Opportunities appear, resources are discovered, people show up at the right time. But none of it happens until you decide, with complete conviction, what it is you're after. Most people never take the time to define that. They say they want more money, or better life, or to be happy. But those are not definite purposes, they're vague wishes, and vague wishes produce vague results. You can't hit a target you cannot see. But once you decide exactly what you want, and you make up your mind that you will have it, you trigger a force more powerful than any education or background. You awaken a part of yourself that is designed to create. Now, this is not just theory. This is something I've witnessed time and time again. A man with no formal education becomes a millionaire because he had a clear purpose and refused to quit. A woman with no experience builds a thriving business because she saw it in her mind first, clearly, in detail, and then took action to bring it into the world. They didn't stumble into success. They directed their lives with intention. But the world is filled with distractions, it's filled with noise, opinions, fears, and failures, and without a definite purpose, it's easy to get pulled in every direction. One moment you're chasing one dream, and the next, someone else's voice convinces you to follow a different path. You cannot afford to live that way. You must decide who you are, what you want, and why you're willing to work for it. That decision, that clarity, is the foundation of every fortune. Let me give you an image. Imagine a river, wild and full of power. If left to flow in every direction, it floods the land, causes damage, and goes nowhere useful. But if that river is channeled, if its energy is focused, it becomes hydroelectric power. It lights up entire cities. That's what happens when you channel your thoughts toward a definite purpose. You take the raw energy of your life and give it direction, power, and purpose. Now, once you choose your goal, it must become an obsession, not a casual interest, not something you remember once a week. It must become something you think about morning and night, something you visualize with detail, something you build plans around and commit to with full heart. That level of desire is not common, but it is available to anyone who is willing to stop making excuses and start making decisions. Every great achievement in history began with a clearly defined goal in someone's mind. It didn't start with luck. It didn't start with resources. It started with an idea, backed by a burning desire to see it through. And let me be very clear, once you define your purpose and back it with belief and action, the world starts responding to you differently. You walk differently. People treat you differently. Circumstances seem to bend in your favor. It's not magic, it's alignment. Your thoughts, emotions, and actions begin to move as one. But here's the part most people miss: you can't fake it. You can't say you have a goal and then live like you don't. You must prove to yourself and to the world that you are serious, that you are committed, that you are ready to pay the price for what you want. That price may be effort, it may be time, it may be sacrifice, but no one ever reaches their purpose without paying something. And when you pay it gladly, when you see the value of your dream, then it begins to come to life. I've seen people write their goal on a card and carry it with them every day. They read it aloud each morning. They see it in their mind before they fall asleep. They make every decision based on whether it brings them closer to that purpose or pulls them further away. And do you know what happens to those people? They become unstoppable. Because once your purpose is definite, your doubts begin to fade, fear loses its grip, you stop asking if it's possible, and you start asking how to make it happen. The world respects a mind that knows where it's going. Opportunities respect it, money respects it, people are drawn to it. But you must earn that respect by making a decision and never letting it go. You don't need 10 paths, you need one. One that is clear, one that is yours, one that you will follow no matter what. So decide what you want with such clarity and conviction that the world can't help but make room for it. There's a force inside you more powerful than anything you've been taught to rely on. It's not your education, not your environment, and not even your physical strength. It's your mind, specifically, the way you teach it to believe in what doesn't yet exist. Because belief, real belief, is the trigger that starts all achievement. Before you build the life you want on the outside, you must first build it on the inside. That's how success is created, by planting the seed of faith deep into the subconscious mind and nurturing it every single day. Now, when most people hear the word faith, they think of something spiritual, maybe even religious. But the kind of faith I'm talking about is practical, it's scientific. It's the ability to see a result in your mind so clearly, with so much emotional certainty, that you begin to act as though it were already real. And here's what's incredible. When the subconscious mind is trained to believe something, it stops resisting. It starts working toward that reality with relentless energy. The average person has no idea how powerful their subconscious really is. It controls habits, responses, confidence, and perception. But more than that, it creates a filter through which the world is interpreted. If that filter is full of doubt, fear, or insecurity, then no matter what opportunities pass by, they won't be recognized or acted upon. But if that filter is built on belief, expectation, and vision, then even the smallest opportunity will be seen and seized. So how do we build this faith? How do we plant belief so deeply that it transforms our behavior, our thinking, and ultimately our lives? We do it by repetition, by emotional intensity, by speaking, thinking, writing, and visualizing the life we want until the subconscious mind accepts it as truth, and once it does, it begins to orchestrate everything around us to bring that truth to life. Most people, unfortunately, use this same process in reverse. They feed their subconscious mind a steady diet of fear. They say things like, "I'm not smart enough," or "people like me never succeed," or "I could never afford that." And what happens? The subconscious accepts those thoughts as commands and begins creating that very reality. You see, the mind doesn't argue, it obeys. It takes the dominant thoughts you give it and gets to work. That's why it's so critical to guard your thoughts and words. Never speak of failure as if it were permanent. Never declare limitation as if it were a fact. The words you repeat to yourself are the blueprint your subconscious will build upon. If you say, "I can," long enough you'll start acting like someone who can. If you say, "I will," long enough your behavior will align with that belief. I've seen people go from hopeless to unstoppable, not because anything changed on the outside, but because they finally decided to believe, and that belief rewired their entire system. It made them walk into rooms differently. It gave them the courage to speak up, to take risks, to expect more from life. Faith gave them the strength to keep going when nothing seemed to be working. It became the engine that pushed them through fear, failure, and fatigue. But let me be clear, faith isn't about pretending. It's not about closing your eyes and hoping something good happens. It's about choosing, on purpose, to condition your mind for what you want instead of what you fear. It's about reprogramming your subconscious to expect success, not just desire it, but expect it. And once that expectation takes root, your actions begin to change. You move with more certainty. You stop hesitating. You attract people and situations that match your belief. This isn't luck, it's alignment. Your internal world begins to match the external one you desire. And soon, the things you once thought were impossible begin showing up, not because they changed, but because you did. Now here's the part that most miss. You don't need anyone else's permission to believe in yourself. You don't need a title, a degree, or approval. You only need to make a decision, to reject doubt and feed your faith. It will feel unfamiliar at first, because for years, the mind has been trained to expect less. But every time you affirm your vision, every time you visualize your goal and speak it with conviction, you are building new pathways in the brain. You are rewiring the subconscious. And with time, that new wiring becomes stronger than the old one. And once that happens, the world begins to bend in your favor. Not because it suddenly becomes easier, but because you become stronger. Faith doesn't remove challenges. It removes hesitation, and in the absence of hesitation, action becomes natural, momentum builds, confidence grows, and success becomes inevitable, not accidental, not lucky, but the direct result of a mind that was trained to believe. So if you want to change your life, you must first change your belief. Teach your mind to expect abundance, to see opportunity, to believe in your worth, and your life will begin to reflect it. There's a law of success that's often overlooked, yet it's as real as gravity. No one climbs to the top alone. No one builds a fortune, a business, a legacy, without the influence, support, and energy of others. The truth is, your environment shapes your outcomes. The people you surround yourself with will either pull you forward or hold you back. That's why if you're serious about success, you must become intentional about who you let into your circle. You must create what I call a mastermind, a group of minds aligned in purpose, in energy, in vision. Now, I don't mean a group of people who simply agree with you. I don't mean friends who flatter you or coworkers who go along with whatever's said. I mean something far more powerful, a collective of minds, working together in harmony, each one contributing ideas, experience, and belief. When two or more people come together with a shared goal, and they think and act in perfect coordination, a third invisible force is created. That force, greater than the individuals themselves, holds the potential to unlock ideas and breakthroughs that none of them could reach alone. That's the power of the mastermind. It is a multiplying force. You bring your thoughts, your goals, your challenges, and others bring their insight, their wisdom, their perspective. Suddenly, you begin to see things differently. A problem that once seemed overwhelming becomes solvable. A dream that felt out of reach starts to feel inevitable, not because someone handed you the answer, but because minds working in sync awaken solutions that would have never appeared in isolation. Let me ask you, who are you talking to about your dreams? Who are you allowing to influence your thinking? Are they pushing you to grow, to challenge yourself, to believe bigger? Or are they sowing doubt, feeding fear, keeping you comfortable and small? Because if your environment doesn't stretch you, it will shrink you. And no one rises above the level of influence they allow into their lives. That's why I urge you to choose your associates with care. Choose people who are going where you want to go. Choose people who speak the language of possibility, not limitation. Choose those who are hungry, focused, and willing to support your growth without envy or resentment. You need people who see your vision, even when it hasn't taken shape yet. People who believe in your potential, even when your results don't yet show it. When you build a mastermind around those values, honesty, clarity, desire, and alignment, you create a network that becomes your greatest asset. Because while you may lose money, while plans may fail or markets may shift, a strong mastermind is an endless source of renewal. It's where you go when your energy dips. It's where you go when you need ideas, encouragement, correction. It becomes the place where your purpose gets refined, your confidence restored, and your action redirected. I've seen this truth play out time and again. A single conversation inside the right group can change the entire direction of someone's life. A casual idea shared at the right moment becomes $1 million opportunity. A word of encouragement given at the lowest point revives the fire that almost went out. These are not small things. These are the seeds of greatness. But you'll never receive them unless you put yourself in the position to give and receive through collaboration. Now let me be clear, this doesn't happen by accident. A mastermind must be formed intentionally. It must be nurtured with trust and clarity. It is not a social club. It's not a place to complain or gossip. It's a sacred alliance of minds dedicated to growth, prosperity, and vision. Every member must bring value, must be committed to their own purpose, and must be willing to contribute to the progress of others. Because when each person gives, each person receives more in return. And don't make the mistaking, and this is only for people in high places. No, this is for anyone who understands that the fastest way to grow is to grow together. Even if all you have is one other person who shares your commitment, that's enough to begin. Meet regularly, talk goals, share progress, offer feedback, hold each other accountable. Do not underestimate what can grow from a conversation when the intention behind it is strong. The most dangerous place for a dream to live is in isolation. Left alone, it's too easy for fear to creep in, for doubt to take hold, for enthusiasm to fade. But bring that dream into the light. Share it with someone who sees what you see, who wants what you want, and suddenly, it gains strength, it gains legs, it begins to move. That's the difference between wandering in circles and walking a path that leads somewhere. So if you're still trying to figure it all out alone, I urge you to stop, look around, reach out, connect with those who challenge you, who uplift you, who mirror back the best version of you. Form your mastermind, protect it and grow within it, because together, there is no limit to how far you can go. There is a dangerous myth that has been sold to people for generations, a lie so subtle and widespread that most accept it without question. The myth is this: that knowledge alone is power, that if you just learn enough, if you gather enough information, if you earn enough credentials, success will somehow follow. But let me tell you something very clearly. Knowledge is only potential power. It becomes real power only when it's applied with purpose, with commitment, and above all, with action. We are living in an age where information is everywhere. You can search for answers in seconds. You can study endlessly, listen to lectures, read books, collect advice. And yet, so many people remain stuck, not because they don't know what to do, but because they never do what they know. They confuse movement with progress and learning with doing. They stay busy reading and planning and preparing, but they never step into motion. And without motion, nothing happens. That's where this book from 1937 draws the line in the sand. It doesn't care how much you know. It doesn't reward intellect for its own sake. It demands action. It calls on you to take what you learn, what you desire, what you believe, and do something with it. Because results don't come to those who study forever. They come to those who act, who make decisions, who risk failure in the pursuit of something real. You don't need more time. You don't need more resources. You don't need someone else's permission. You need to decide what you want, and begin where you are. Even if the step is small, even if it feels uncertain, because once you take that first step, momentum begins to build, and with momentum your confidence grows. You begin to learn faster, see more clearly, and adjust more skillfully, not because you sat still and analyzed, but because you moved. I've seen people talk about starting businesses for years, study the market, read every book, follow every expert, and still never launch. Meanwhile, someone else with half the knowledge and twice the hunger starts with a simple plan, takes a risk, and succeeds. Why? Because life rewards action. The world bends for those who refuse to wait. Imperfect action beats perfect inaction every single time. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't prepare. Planning is valuable, but only when it leads to execution. Too many people use preparation as a disguise for fear. They convince themselves that they're not ready, that they need just a little more time, one more course, one more certification. But what they're really doing is hiding. They're avoiding the riskability that comes with stepping into the arena, because action is risky. You might fail. You might look foolish. You might discover that it's harder than you thought. But that's exactly where growth lies. On the other side of that fear, every successful person you admire, every story of triumph you've ever heard, has this one thing in common: they started before they felt ready. They moved before they had every answer. They built while learning, not after they knew it all. And that's what separates the dreamers from the achievers. The dreamers stay in their minds, imagining what could be. The achievers bring those dreams into the physical world, one action at a time. They take the principles they've learned, desire, belief, decision, purpose, and they live them. Not in theory, but in motion. You see, success doesn't wait for you to be perfect. It meets you at the point of commitment. It meets you when you stop sitting on the edge and finally jump in. And no, you won't always get it right the first time, but you'll get feedback. You'll gain clarity. You'll learn faster through doing than you ever could by watching from the sidelines, because experience is the greatest teacher, and it only shows up after action is taken. It is far better to start and correct your course than to never start at all. Some of the greatest breakthroughs will come not from your best laid plans, but from your willingness to adapt as you go. Action opens doors that thinking alone cannot. You meet the right people, you discover unexpected resources, you realize new possibilities, but none of that happens until you move. So don't get caught in the trap of passive ambition, where you talk big but act small, where you plan endlessly but never produce. If you want the rewards of success, you must accept the price of action. That means doing the thing when it's inconvenient, when it's uncomfortable, when the fear is loud, because the more you act, the quieter that fear becomes, and eventually, action becomes your nature. You stop overthinking, you stop waiting, start building. Remember, no one ever built a fortune, a movement, or a legacy by sitting in a classroom alone. It was built in the field, in the trenches, in the middle of bold decisions and brave steps. So take the step, make the call, launch the idea, write the page, have the conversation. Do it not because you're completely ready, but because you're done waiting. The war of the luck and dream. The world does not reward what you know, it rewards what you do with what you know. There's something I want you to understand, something that should shake the very foundation of how you see your life. Success is not reserved for the elite. It is not some distant prize for the lucky or the privileged or the highly educated. It is not kept behind the locked gates of universities or passed down through bloodlines. Success, real, lasting success, is available to everyone who is willing to claim it. That means you. No matter where you started, no matter what you lack, no matter who doubted you, you are not disqualified, you are not behind, you are not too late. This truth is one that has been hidden by society for too long. We've been trained to believe that success is handed out by external systems, by degrees, by family connections, by approval from someone more powerful. But the real power has never been outside of you. It's been within you all along, and the moment you decide to stop waiting for permission, you begin to awaken that power. I've seen people rise from poverty, from broken homes, from total obscurity, simply because they made a decision. They decided they would no longer be a victim of their circumstances. They decided their past would not define their future, and they backed that decision with belief, with desire, with action. They didn't have more opportunities. They created them. They didn't agreement, didn't have a better starting point. They just had a stronger commitment to not stay where they were. And if they could do it, so can you. Do not let the world convince you that success is for other people. There is no such thing as other people. There is only you and your vision, your willingness to work, your capacity to believe. You may not have gone to the best schools, you may not know the right people, you may have made mistakes, but none of those things disqualify you. In fact, they may be the very things that give you the strength, the hunger, the fire that others lack. Some of the most successful people in the world started with less than you have right now. They had nothing but an idea and the refusal to give up, and that was enough. They were told they didn't have what it takes. They were laughed at, dismissed, overlooked. But they didn't listen. They didn't need anyone else to believe in them, because they believed in themselves. That belief was the turning point. That belief made the difference. That belief can be yours too. You have everything you need already inside you. What you must do now is stop waiting. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. Stop waiting for someone to notice you. Stop waiting for certainty, for clarity, for confidence. Those things don't come before action. They follow it. You move first, and they show up after. But if you never move, they never arrive. That's why I say success is available to everyone. Not because it's easy, not because it's free, but because it's earned, and anyone can earn it, regardless of where they begin. The only thing you need is the willingness to start, and the courage to keep going. You need to be willing to think differently than the crowd, to believe when others doubt, to act when others hesitate. The world will try to talk you out of your dream. It will give you 1,000 reasons to quit. But if the desire is real and your purpose is clear, none of that will matter. You'll rise above it. You'll walk your path, no matter how narrow or uncertain it seems, because you won't be walking with just your feet. You'll be walking with conviction, with vision, with the power of a mind that refuses to settle. And remember this, there is no shortage of success. Someone else winning does not take anything away from you. You are not in competition with the world. You are in competition with your own hesitation, your own fear, your own excuses. And the moment you overcome those things, you'll see that the life you've dreamed about is not far away. It's closer than you think. It's waiting on the other side of belief, on the other side of discipline, on the other side of your decision to no longer live small. I want you to see yourself differently. Not as someone hoping for success, but as someone becoming successful step by step, choice by choice. Every morning you wake up with purpose. Every time you speak your goal aloud. Every time you take action when it would be easier to quit. You are proving to yourself that success is yours, and that proof compounds. It becomes who you are. Not someone chasing success, but someone living it. More reluctant agreement. You don't need to be special. You need to be willing. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be persistent. You don't need the whole world to believe in you. More than reluctant agreement. You just need to believe long enough for the world to catch up. Success belongs to the one who claims it.